Hi there. Thank you for joining me for this IELTS reading lesson. Today we're going to look at the table completion question type. This question type is probably the most unique question type, and it's the most different to the other questions. And so sometimes students don't expect this question type on the exam, but it's very important to prepare for it and to know how to best approach this table completion question and ultimately succeed. So I'm going to take you through some common tips for completion types of questions, because again, we'll have to write out the answer. And then we'll go through a map, a guide for how to best approach this question type, and then we'll do a step-by-step example together. And our example is excellent because it's quite difficult, even though most completion questions will come more or less in order usually. You may see some table completion questions that could be out of order, and today will be an excellent example as to how to tackle that situation and not let it eat away at your time. Before we get started, I just want to give you some general information about table completion. As you see here on the left-hand side, you'll have a table that is incomplete and it has a few gaps. So we'll have to write out the answers based on the information here in the passage. Now, the information in the table will either paraphrase or summarize the information that is in the passage. So you'll have to be familiar with synonyms and ways that paraphrasing can perhaps trick you. For example, you might see the word fragments, as we see here in the passage. You might see this word. And don't be surprised if in the table you have to write the singular version, so fragment instead of fragments. These are common tricks that the table completion question is notorious for. So we'll also have to pay attention to our grammar and to the words surrounding our gap fills. And because of this, the scanning technique will be very handy to us, and I'll go through an example of how to scan quickly so that we can find our answers efficiently for this question type. And the last thing I just want to call your attention to are the instructions. You might be familiar with this type of instruction from different completion question types, such as summary completion and short answer. Be aware that they can range from no more than 2 numbers and or a word to 1 word only, or no more than 3 words, for example. So always be aware of the instructions so you know exactly what you have to write and your options. And keep in mind that for our example today, we'll be looking for numbers, perhaps, words. The most important thing is that we know it's no more than 2 numbers and 1 word. Okay, I'm happy to get started. So let's go ahead and look at some helpful reminders for writing in our answers. Now, you might remember some of these reminders from different completion question types that we've covered, but I just want to review them so they're fresh in our memory and so that we're ready to tackle this question type. For any completion questions, you want to make sure that you remember information about numbers. So numbers can be written using the figures themselves. So for example, here we have 10, the number, or you can use words. So you can write out 10. This is the same. It's your preference. You decide. Remember, though, that they count as 1 word. Remember, the instructions will specify this. Today we have no more than 2 numbers and a word. So keep in mind that they are considered similar to words. Then in terms of words, hyphenated words also count as 1 word. So a word like open-minded is joined together by a hyphen. Even though these are 2 different words, the hyphen makes it 1 word. Then do not use contractions. So these are words like can't, don't, things like this. Do exactly what I did here and use do not. Spell it out, because the IELTS exam is academic in nature, so you will not see contractions in the passages, and you will not be tested on contractions. So be sure to write out your words. In the completion questions, prepositions and articles, so words like the or an are usually optional. We're looking for keywords, we're looking for key ideas, and these are just considered as extra. When writing out your words, capital letters are best. This keeps everything precise and uniform and consistent, so the person who is reading your exam and checking your exam will not have any doubts as to what you've written. And then if you're talking about people or researchers, last names are usually sufficient because this is academic in nature and last names are key. In fact, in the passages, you'll note that first and last names usually appear in the beginning, the first time a person is mentioned, and then afterwards, that person will be referred to by their last name. So please keep these in mind. Today, we'll be focusing on numbers, but it's always good to review these reminders. All right, let's go to our step-by-step guide. Now, like I said earlier, this table completion question type is quite unique, and so our guide and our step-by-step example will also be unique. It'll be a bit different than what we're used to with other types of questions. So our first step is going to be to analyze the table we have. And so we'll have to look for different columns. We'll have to see what information is needed and what we have to look for. We want to get a good idea of the subject matter, the theme, if we're going to be looking for numbers or words, and this will help us best approach the passage. So first thing we're going to do is analyze the table we have in front of us. Then we're going to identify the grammar. We're going to look at the words surrounding the gaps, and this will give us a good clue about what we have to look for in the passage. It could be looking for a noun or a verb or an adverb or an adjective, or in our case today, a number. So by really identifying the grammar, we're taking care of this preparation work and going into the passage with a very clear view, and this will save us a lot of time. And then you might be familiar with this. The third step, we're going to scan the passage, and this is quite common for completion types of questions. Again, scanning is reading with headlights. So you're reading looking for specific information. Perhaps it's your keywords, or it's the fact that you are looking for a noun or a specific adjective. You're going in the passage determined. You're not reading for enjoyment. You're not reading to get an idea of the plot or the theme or what the author is trying to say or opinions. You're looking for specific, very specific information that we can put in our table. All right, so our steps 1, 2, and 3. Let's go ahead and start with our step 1. Okay, so here we are with step 1. We're going to analyze the table. On the right-hand side, you see we have the table here with our questions 1 through 6. So we have 3 questions on the left-hand side and 3 questions on the right-hand side. So there are 2 different columns for this table: the Chelyabinsk meteor strike and the Tunguska meteor strike. And again, we'll have to find 3 different pieces of information for each type of meteor strike. So there's an equal amount on both sides, and this is good because we'll have to spend time looking for Chelyabinsk and Tunguska. It's more or less evenly distributed, so this is good to know. And this step also allows us to see the theme that's present in our reading. We'll be looking at meteor strike, so it's quite scientific, and we're already introduced to the topic. Okay, so that just about satisfies step 1. I'll go ahead and clear our screen so that we can go to the next step, step 2, everybody's favorite, identifying grammar. All right, we're going to look at the grammar and take some brief notes about the type of word we will be looking for. So I'm just going to briefly read here. I see that a number 10 meters is located in the first column. Let's look at number 1. It traveled blank times faster than the speed of sound. So I see times faster than the speed of sound. So I'm looking for a number in this case, and it's going to be an amount of speed. So some number faster than the speed of sound. Okay, number 2. It exploded blank above the Earth's surface. So again, this could also be an amount, perhaps maybe a feet or meters. So something that would designate distance because we see above the surface. So that gives us a nice clue that we're talking about distance. Number 3, it released blank times more energy than the Hiroshima atomic bomb. Very similar to number 1 because we see times again. So this will also be some sort of amount. Most importantly, it will be a number. And then again, we see meteor strikes every 10 years. The fact that we have 10 in the first and last column is also a good clue that 1 through 3 will probably also be numbers. And just remember, your instructions say no more than 2 numbers and 1 word, so it isn't uncommon that 1 through 3 are numbers. All right, let's move to the right-hand side, the Tunguska meteor strike. Number 4, the meteor was blank meters in diameter. Quite clear, since we have meters here and we're looking at a diameter, this is going to be a number. We're going to look for a number of meters. Number 5, it entered the atmosphere above Russia at about blank per hour. Again, not surprisingly, we're looking at a number. So it's some sort of speed. Again, it's going to be an amount. And here, 28,000 feet, we see another number. 185 times, we see another number. And then number 6, meteor strikes of this kind occur on average every blank years. And so the fact that we see every and years is an excellent clue that this will be a number as well. Wow, 1 through 6, they're going to be numbers. So this is great. We've already identified what we need. They're all nouns in this case because they're all numbers. But imagine if you had not done this step. If you had not done this step, you would have just approached the text scanning for words or scanning for everything. And in this case, we're very fortunate to know that we're just looking for numbers. Excellent. I'll clear our screen just so that we can check here and we can see our highlights. And this is everything we looked at. The fact here that distance is an amount, perhaps in feet or meters, is also a number. All right, excellent. Let's continue to scanning our passage. Step 3, scan the passage and then answer the questions. So we're going to scan our passage, and when we found a section that has a similar theme to our table and to our gap fills, we can start scanning for information, okay? We'll have to look for synonyms, and it's an excellent idea to block off the section. So for example, if I see a number such as 30 times brighter, if I block off this section, I can reference it and I can go back to it when I start answering my questions, or I could skip a question and make a little note in my margin for where I should go back to when I come back to that question. And so once we've found good areas or a good area to answer our question, we're going to go back and answer the question. And just remember that if you have to, you can always go back to reference these little notes that you make in the actual test. So I'll just clear our screen here quickly and go back down to our table just to refresh our memory. We want to write no more than 2 numbers and 1 word. Okay, so I'll just move down a bit. So we have all of our information. Okay, almost all of our information. We'll scroll down. And I'm just going to scan the text with these numbers and with this information in mind. I will give you a clue that in this specific example, the answers do not come in order. So it's extra difficult. It'll be great to follow along with me. Now, for those readings that have a lot of numbers, just like we have today, it's an excellent idea to read for these numbers. It's very easy to pick numbers from a passage of words, so use that to your advantage. Obviously, you don't want to get confused with words like dates if they're not included in your reading. but really think about these numbers because in a way, these are your keywords. And of course, you don't want to forget your headings. So we have Chelyabinsk and Tunguska meteor strikes to scan for. And if I start just with these headings, I already see Chelyabinsk right in the first paragraph, also here above. So we can start here and we can scan for our keywords. And so I'll start here. It says, to the people of Chelyabinsk, the meteor shone 30 times brighter than the sun and had 20 to 30 times more energy than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. All right, I'm not sure if you remember, but I definitely remember. We had information about the atomic bomb and Hiroshima, and I definitely remember times and times in our column. So let me go ahead and just erase these highlights so we don't get confused. And I'll move down so we can see everything that is included in our columns. And immediately I see Hiroshima and the bomb right here for number 3. So it says it released blank times more energy than the Hiroshima atomic bomb. And we are talking about Chelyabinsk in this left-hand side. So just to go ahead and read again, the meteor shone 30 times brighter than the sun and had 20 to 30 times more energy than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Now, a very common pitfall with this is the fact that you see two different numbers. So you see 30 and you see 20 to 30. And students might be confused as to which one is the correct answer for number 3. We know that number 3 is contained in this sentence because we have these excellent keywords here: atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, atomic bomb here, and Hiroshima here. Notice how it is worded a bit differently, but this is common for the exam. So we want to look at what is directly related to the Hiroshima atomic bomb, and that brings us to 20 to 30. Not just 30, but 20 to 30, because 30 is talking about how bright and how much brighter than the sun the meteor was. So not 30, don't fall for that trick. Number 3 would be 20 to 30. That is the correct answer. And now at the end of this passage, we'll see the various ways that you could write this, but just be aware that you could write 20 with a hyphen in the middle, 30 as it is in the text, or you could write 22, the letter T and the letter O, 30. Again, we'll look at this at the end, so don't worry. Okay, so we have number 3 completed, and notice how this was presented first in the paragraph. Table completion questions are usually in order, but don't be surprised if the IELTS exam plays a little bit of a trick on you. So we were prepared for this, and now let's clear our screen and continue on. So we're still going to look here at Chelyabinsk. We can mentally cross off number 3. We don't have to worry about this for now. We're looking at faster than the speed of sound, Earth's surface. And also the fact that it exploded would be something good to look at. And so I'm going to just mark off our area here and look for some numbers and look for some of these words. And so already I see exploded. So this might be a great place for number 2. And I see a distance. If you remember, number 2 was a distance and also obviously a number, but kilometers is a distance. So I already have an excellent idea that this could be the correct answer. But let's just read ahead and make sure that we're 100% confident. So it exploded 29.7 kilometers above the ground. And this says here above the Earth's surface. You see, it's a synonym. The Earth's surface, you could also say ground. And so that is perfect. It exploded 29.7 kilometers. Now, keep in mind that 29.7 alone would not be the correct answer because, again, we were looking for a distance. And this is what the instructions mean. when they say no more than 2 numbers and 1 word. So in this case, the word is kilometers. So again, just to highlight that off, 29.7 kilometers. At the end, we'll look at the spelling. There are 2 ways to spell kilometers, the British way and the American way. Here we have the British spelling. Know that the American spelling is also accepted, but again, I'll show that to you at the end of the video. All right, and so for Chelyabinsk, we have just 1 more left. We see here, it traveled blank times faster than the speed of sound. So let's go ahead and scan the text for this information. And so I'll just move down a bit because I'm looking at numbers, for example, 1,500, but that is not included in my table, so I'm going to just skip it for now. I also see some temperature, but already I see here the speed of sound, which is what we have in the table here. So I'm going to read a little bit here and find how many times faster it traveled. So it says, it crashed through the upper atmosphere at around 19 kilometers a second above 50 times the speed of sound. So again, we see 19 and we see 50. And students might think, all right, I know we're in this area, but I'm not sure of the correct number. And that's where we have to look at these words. So times faster would be 50 because it says 50 times. 19 kilometers is a distance. And from our step 2, we knew that number 1 was a number and not a distance. So this would be 50. It would simply be a number. And you could go ahead and write 50, the number, or you could write out the words 50, 50. That is the correct answer. So you don't want to get confused with conflicting information and 2 types of numbers in the same sentence. This is a common trick for table completion question types, especially when they involve numbers, because this will confuse students. Some students would write 19, and that would be absolutely incorrect. Again, notice how this was not in order, so we have to be alert about our numbers and our words in the table. Let's go ahead and continue. Now we're going to be scanning for Tunguska. So we haven't come across Tunguska yet. We're still at Chelyabinsk. And so I'm just going to scan until I see Tunguska. And so finally, here we see it at the end of the passage. So I see the Tunguska River and air bursts the size of Tunguska. Okay, so I think this might be the right area. I'm just going to scan for meteor and diameter, atmosphere, per hour. Let's see what we find. Already I see the word diameter here, and it says information about the event is scarce. The theory most scientists share is that an asteroid around 36.5 meters in diameter and traveling at 54,000 kilometers per hour entered the atmosphere above Russia. All right, so the fact that we are under Tunguska in this column here is an excellent clue that the diameter under Tunguska in the passage is 36.5, and that is our answer for number 4, 36.5 meters in diameter. Be sure not to write 36.5 meters, since meters is included here, so don't make that mistake. Just the number is needed. Okay, 36.5. Now I'm going to stick right here around this sentence because I read that it entered the atmosphere above Russia. And again, we're looking at per hour. So the fact that I see per hour also here brings me to this lovely number, 54,000 kilometers. And so again, we were aware that it would be a number, but it also makes sense that it would be kilometers because it's kilometers per hour. So we have our answer also for number 5, 54,000 kilometers. Okay, so you see how this section contained 2, and also it will contain our last answer, and it's all the way at the end of the text. So by scanning for Chelyabinsk and also Tunguska really led us in the right direction. Let me clear our screen. And move down to our last question, which is about meteor strikes. All right, so again, we were right around here, and so our answer is probably going to be contained here. We're looking at meteor strikes, and again, I see Tunguska, and it says 1,200 years on average. This is a number that I see in the passage. It says on average, which is very similar to our table here. Airbursts is not the same word as meteor strikes, but it is an excellent synonym. And so airbursts the size of Tunguska are estimated to occur every 1,200 years on average. So that gives us an excellent clue that this answer is 1,200. And make note that this sentence and this information here is not worded exactly the same. It's paraphrased, like I talked about in the beginning, but it still has the same meaning. So that would be 1,200. Okay, let's go ahead and clear these drawings and just review. So we looked at Chelyabinsk. Number one was that it traveled 50 times faster than the speed of sound. We found that up here in the beginning. We found that in the middle of the text, not in the beginning, it was more around here, so 50 times. Number two, it exploded 29.7 kilometers above the Earth's surface or above the ground. Number three was 20 to 30 times more energy. So if you remember, that was found right in the beginning of our look into this passage. It was right around here. And then for Tunguska, we had to move all the way down to the end of the passage, which again is rare for table completion, but it's better to practice with something difficult. We noticed that it was 36.5 meters in diameter. And number five, it was traveling at 54,000 kilometers per hour, but the answer would only be 54,000 kilometers because per hour is included here. And then number six was 1,200, so 1,200 years on average. Okay, I'll clear our screen for one last time. And so note here that when I show our answers, it's only going to show one type of answer, but I will take you through on the right-hand side and show you the different ways that you could write or spell the answers. Okay, so here we go. Let's show our answers. And they are correct. So these are exactly what we talked about. The spelling is the same as what was in the text, but let me just show you. You could write 50 or you could write it out. For number two, which was up here, you could write kilometers with the British spelling or the American spelling. I always find it helpful to just stick with the spelling that you see presented in the passage because you won't make a mistake about spelling and it's already in there for you, so it's easier to just stick with that spelling. Number three, 20 to 30, so you can use the word or the dash. Let's go down to number four, we see 36.5. This is really the only way to do it because if you were to write 36.5, that would be strange because you'd have to write point, and I've never seen that done. So if you have points like this, stick to writing the number. And again here, you don't have to necessarily write the comma for 54,000 or 1,200. It doesn't make any difference, so just keep that in mind. And again, kilometers or kilometers. All right, excellent job. This passage had us going back and forth, and in the end, scanning for these two meteor strikes and the information in our table brought us to the right answers. Good job. All right, let's just wrap up here with our table completion recap. So things to do. You want to analyze the table and understand the best way to approach it. So we took some time beforehand and we looked at the two different columns, the fact that 3 pieces of information would be required for each type of meteor. And this really helped us organize ourselves and really approach the passage with a determined mindset. You also want to read the summarized information in the table so that you're well aware of the themes and the information that you'll have to look for. Of course, identify the parts of speech that would fit in the gaps. In our case, we were looking at numbers or distances, but we already knew that we had to just scan for numbers. This saved us a lot of time. We weren't scanning for unnecessary words. We knew that numbers were our answers. Of course, scan the passage. We are not reading for information. In fact, we probably couldn't tell anybody what we learned from this passage because we were looking just for numbers and very specific information. And that is fine because scanning is the strategy that will get you points and make you successful for table completion questions. Of course, you want to write the correct amount of words or numbers on your answer sheet and make sure that you're not repeating things like kilometers or per hour if it's already written in your question table. Of course, don't read the entire passage first. That's probably the worst thing you could do for table completion questions. Don't read for general information. This is not fun, pleasurable reading. So look only for the information you need. Like I said before, don't write more words than necessary. That's just more work for you and also fewer points for you. And of course, don't misspell words or use incorrect grammar. Use the words in the passage to your advantage. So for example, you could use the spelling for kilometers just like you saw in the passage, and you'll be fine. All right, excellent job. This was a mix of a little bit of math today with these numbers and also reading. Excellent job. This was a difficult passage. I hope that you can approach your table completion questions with a bit more clarity and a more determined mindset so that you can start your questions and then finish them and move on to the next passage. Thanks again for joining me. And if you'd like to practice more, please visit us at www.bestmytest.com/IELTS. Again, that's www.bestmytest.com/IELTS. Thanks, have a lovely day, and I'll see you for the next lesson.